this video we're going to discuss Kihon Waza Dachi for stances. What we're going to cover are the major stances that are used in the Goju kata. Once you've mastered this, then you'll be able to do almost every kata in the system. But it's extremely important to get the stances right. So anything to do with karate always boils down back to Kihon, or the basics. What we're going to do is tie in our first video of Kihon basic posture into these stances. And in the first video we talked about correct foot position and body alignment. And now we're going to put that into these stances. So let's get started. On the floor, I've laid out a small bit of tape to indicate a few starting points. The center of the cross here is called the Embusen. That's our starting point, and that will lead to the general pattern of the kata. The black is our shoulder width, and the second shorter green line at the front is the distance from heel to toe. And up at the front we have two smaller black points to mark where we will be when we get to our Zenkutsu Dachi and Shikurashi. So the way we begin is we step onto our tape mark here, feet together in a closed foot stance called Hisoku Dachi. The next step from here is then to go to Musubu Dachi. From the Musubu Dachi, we open to Haiko Dachi. From Haiko Dachi, we will step into Sanchin Dachi. From Sanchin Dachi into Zenkutsu Dachi. From our Zenkutsu Dachi, Shikurashi. From our Shikurashi, backward leaning stance. From here, Mikoshi Dachi. Back to Musubu Dachi. Back to Hisoku Dachi. Our first stance is Hisoku Dachi, closed foot stance. You want to make sure that when we set up for this stance that your heels are together, knees are together, but your knees are slightly bent. Well, not like this. But same token, we're not straightening up like this. The knees are slightly bent. We make sure that the 9 points of our feet are touching the floor as we discussed in basic posture. Make sure that our chest is upwards. We tighten our legs. We don't lock them, we tighten the muscle groups. And as the last little part, a breath in, and relax and sink into your stance. Now you're in a proper Hisoku. From our Hisoku Dachi, open up so the feet on a 45-degree angle. And now in Musubu Dachi. The same thing now applies in Musubu Dachi. In this position you will be in the beginning of your kata. So again, allow your knees to bend slightly. Now the legs tighten up, the buttocks tighten up the abdominal region. Now you're in Musubu Dachi. And again, it's the same thing. So make sure that you're not like this. Take a breath and sink into your stance. Just a touch. Back is straight, chin is in. As we discussed in previous videos, the crown of the head needs to be aligned with the perineum. So that's aimed directly between your heels. Then we're in a good standing posture. This posture we would be in the beginning of our kata and some of the other moves later on. Musuba Dachi, I'm going to open up into a Soka Dachi. Sorry, Haiko Dachi. We'll try that again. From our Musuba Dachi position, we're going to open up into Haiko Dachi. At which point now our feet are parallel, shoulder width apart. When we stand in this position, we make sure again the knees are slightly bent, and we flex the muscles of the leg, and we focus in particular on the inside of the leg, inside abductors, and make sure that they're tightened as well. This stance now we use to generate some power and energy for striking, but also to protect the groin area. Make sure your back is straight, chin is in, the crown of your head aligned with your in, buttocks tightened up to tilt the hips just slightly. Make sure the chest is up, belly button is in, and now we're in proper posture. Make sure too that in all these stances we use our toes to grip the floor. So it's one thing to have our stances, but if we don't grip the toes, we don't have our 9 points, and then our posture goes to pot. So you see, as soon as I lift my toes up, I actually pronate my legs in. I want to make sure that the toes are touching the floor and gripping. They're gripping in this way towards the heel. Now, from our Haiko Dachi, we're going to step forward into Sanchin Dachi. The Sanchin Dachi is 3 barrel stance. It's probably the most common stance you'll find in Goju-Ryu. It's at the heart of everything that we do. From this position, relax, step forward, and root. Now what you'll notice here is that I should still be shoulder width apart. My base foot at the back needs to be straight. And when we discuss straight, we talk about the side edge of the foot being straight. We don't want to make the inside of the edge foot like that straight, because now it actually will turn our hip outwards. So we make sure that this outer edge here is straight this way. That has a way of bringing the toe in slightly. The front foot turned on a slight angle. And now the next key important part is to make sure that the toes of the lead foot are in line with the heel of the back foot. And then you're in a proper Sanchin stance for width and length. From this point in Sanchin, we grab the ground with our toes. We make sure the 9 points of the foot are equally balanced or weighted to the floor. And now we tighten the legs, tighten the calves, tighten the thighs, tighten the abdominal muscles on the inside, very important. Tighten the butt cheeks. Then tighten the abs. Tightening the abs is a similar effect of bringing the belly button towards the spine, which will help to align everything correctly. Same time, we make sure that our chin's in and that we're up. We keep our chest up. Don't confuse that with up like this. Remember, if you think you're stressed or tight, just give it a breath and sink down. So now you're in a natural, relaxed position, proper posture. Now, from our Sanchin position, we're going to step forward into Zenkutsu Dachi, forward leaning stance. So the lead leg will pivot slightly. Step in, Zenkutsu Dachi. Front foot is bent, back foot is locked straight. Make sure that when we're in our Zenkutsu Dachi as well, that our hips are turned forward in the direction of the knee, which is straight. Many people do Zenkutsu Dachi, they're like this. The hips are open slightly. You can tell by the knot of your belt which way is directing. And now you're in a very wobbly and weak stance. So make sure the hips are turned in this way. And the back is straight. If you do it correctly, you should feel that you're locked here. You should also feel locked in the small of your back. Make sure that the knee is over top of your toes. If you stand this way and you can look down and see the tips of your toes, you're not in a proper stance. Bend them slightly, now you're in a proper stance. We make sure too from here that our back foot is square to the floor. And so remember, the 9 points of the foot must be equally balanced and spaced on the floor. Many times what you'll see happen is someone will be in a Zenku Dachi this way, but they'll roll their foot like that. As you can see now, if my foot is rolled forward, then that means that about 4 of the points that are supposed to be on the floor are no longer are. And so now it's a weak stance. You see, it can be allowed for too much movement in the stance. As soon as it's rooted, everything is locked down into the stance. And of course, make sure that this is in the right position. So once again, from our Zen into our Zenku Dachi, this way here. And as we discussed before, crown of the head in line with the perineum, which is underneath. Okay, chest is up, and relax into your stance. From our Zenku Dachi, we shift now to Shiku Dachi. The shift to Shiku Dachi involves just turning this leg and making sure that the knees are bent and directly over top of the heels. There should be almost no change in height from Zenku Dachi to Shiku Dachi. We'll make sure the proper foot position is here so that the back leg is pointing perpendicular to the front leg in your Zenku Dachi. If I bring this up, I should make a right angle with my feet. And make sure now too that the hips are pushed forward this way and the knees are turned to the back. So we want to avoid this from happening in the Shiku Dachi. Because now, if I don't do the hips correctly, I'm actually leaning forward and have a very weak and wobbly stance. So I make sure that the hips are forward, the knees are turned out, the 9 points of the foot are gripping the floor, okay? The legs are tight, belly button in, chin in, looking forward, making sure posture is correct. All the details we discussed before. From our Zenku Dachi, I'm going to shift into a backward leaning stance. I'm not using the Japanese term because at the moment I actually forgot. Shame on me. But that's something you guys can look up for yourselves. Going to the back leaning stance from here, I just straighten the front leg. Now, I want to make sure that that change in height doesn't occur again. From Shiku Dachi, my height should be almost exactly the same. There should be minimal change. Again, we make sure now that the 9 points of each foot are touching the floor. We don't want to roll our foot. Don't want to pronate, that's bad. Make sure our knee is directly over top of our toes. Back is nice and straight, chin is in this way, and our hips are in the direction of our knee. We're going to shift into Nikoashi Dachi. So Nikoashi Dachi, we keep our base leg where it is, but we will turn our foot to a 45-degree angle. Try to keep your height as close to the same as possible, and your back nice and straight. So what we've got here now is that the lead foot should be directly in line with the heel. The base leg is bent, and there's almost no weight to the front leg. Back is straight, this hip of the base leg is out. You should feel a burn through here. The burn is good. So with our Nikoashi Dachi, should be one time where we don't have 9 points on the front foot. We'll have 7 points touching the floor on the front foot. Make sure too that we don't go into too high an angle with the leg. Just in a natural position, the heel should be maybe 1.5 inches off the floor. Once we've gone to this stance, we come back up to our Musubu Dachi. From our Musubu Dachi, remember, tightening the leg muscles, buttocks, making sure the belly button's in, keeping our posture straight. After the Musubu Dachi, then into our Hisuku Dachi. And then we're done. ready to practice the stances. We've gone through an explanation of how to conduct the stances, so now you do it on your own. At home, you can make this pattern if you wish, or not, it's your choice. I like to have it just as a quick reference so I can verify for myself that I'm in all the right positions. So I start. Hesoku dachi, musubu dachi, haiku dachi, sanchin dachi, zenkutsu dachi, shito dachi, gutsu dachi, nikawashi dachi, osubu dachi, hesoku dachi. Then I go back to my starting position, and I'm going to do it all again. Hesoku dachi, musubu dachi, haiku dachi, sanchin dachi, zenkutsu dachi, shito dachi, gutsu dachi, nikawashi dachi, musubu dachi, hesoku dachi. Now it's up to you to practice this over and over again until you have it mastered. It takes a long time. Do it once on the right, do it on the left, do it again. Right, left, until you're sick of it. Then do it some more. The idea is that you're practicing your Kihon for your stances, so you want to work on every part of the stance as we discussed, because then you'll be able to apply it to your kata correctly.